The limousine ride from the church to the reception venue was silent, except for the sound of James breathing heavily, his jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. I sat next to him in my wedding dress, staring at my hands, not knowing what to say. "Sophia," James finally said, his voice quiet but filled with rage. "What the hell was that?" "She was cheating on Dad," I said. "She deserved to be exposed." "At your wedding?" James asked. "At our wedding?" "I know," I said. "I know I should have done it differently. But in that moment, you made a decision that will follow us for the rest of our lives," James said. "Do you understand that? Our wedding day isn't going to be remembered for us getting married. It's going to be remembered for the affair scandal you exposed. Every photo is going to have that moment in it. Every video is going to have that moment. Every story people tell about our wedding is going to be about your stepmom's affair." "I know," I said, my voice breaking. "I'm sorry. I was so angry. I felt so betrayed." "I understand that you were angry," James said, "but this wasn't your place. This was between your father and Patricia. You could have told him privately. You could have let him decide how to handle it. But instead, you took it upon yourself to humiliate her in front of everyone." I knew he was right. I knew I had made a terrible decision, but I also felt defensive. "She deserved it," I said, "after everything she's done to me, after everything she's done to Dad." "Maybe she did deserve it," James said, "but not at your wedding, not at our wedding." When we arrived at the reception venue, we sat in the limousine for another few minutes. James stared out the window, his face unreadable. "I need you to understand something," he said finally. "I married you because I love you. I married you because I thought you were the kind of person who makes thoughtful decisions, who considers consequences before she acts. But today, you showed me that you're not that person. Today, you showed me that you're impulsive and reckless." "James," I tried to say something, but he held up his hand. "We can talk about this later," he said. "Right now, we have to go face all those people and pretend that everything is fine. So let's do that." We got out of the limousine and walked into the reception venue. The reception was a nightmare. The beautiful ballroom that I had spent months decorating felt like a war zone. First, my father didn't show up. He went home. He didn't come to the reception. He didn't dance with me. He didn't give the father-daughter speech. He wasn't there for any of it. My mother was devastated. She kept asking me what I was thinking. She kept telling me that I had destroyed my relationship with my father. "He needed to know the truth," I said defensively. "He deserved to know the truth." "But not like that," my mother said. "Not at your wedding. Not in front of everyone. You could have handled this so much better." My aunts and uncles were divided. Some of them thought I was brave for exposing Patricia. Others thought I was selfish for using my wedding as a platform for family drama. The servers seemed uncomfortable. The DJ seemed unsure what music to play or if anyone even wanted to dance. And everyone kept asking me the same questions. Where was my father? Was the affair real? Was Patricia really having an affair with someone named Robert? The story spread like wildfire. My wedding photos were being posted on social media with captions about the affair scandal. People were texting their friends. By the end of the reception, I'm sure hundreds of people knew about Patricia's infidelity. Maya found me in the bathroom at one point, where I was sitting on the floor in my wedding dress, crying. "Soph," she said, sitting down next to me. "I told you this was a bad idea." "I know," I said. "I know I messed up. Are you okay?" Maya asked. "I don't know," I said. "Everything is falling apart. James is furious. Dad won't even look at me. Mom is devastated. I've ruined everything." "You exposed the truth," Maya said. "That's not nothing." "But at what cost?" I asked. "I destroyed my wedding day. I hurt my father. I damaged my marriage before it even started." Maya didn't have an answer to that. For the next 3 days, Patricia was nowhere to be found. She left my father's house. She quit her job. She deleted her social media accounts. She basically disappeared. My father was a mess. He had taken time off work. He wasn't eating. He wasn't sleeping. He was just sitting in his house, trying to process what had happened. I tried to call him repeatedly. He didn't answer. Finally, I showed up at his house in person. He opened the door, and I barely recognized him. He looked like he had aged 10 years in 3 days. His eyes were red. His hair was disheveled. He looked broken. Dad, I said, trying to hug him. He pulled away. I need to talk to you, he said coldly. We sat down in the living room. The house felt empty and cold without Patricia's presence. What you did at your wedding was unforgivable, my father said. I asked you to wait. I asked you to let me handle this. But you couldn't do that. You had to have your moment of revenge. I was trying to help you, I said. I was trying to protect you. No, my father said. You were trying to hurt her, and in doing so, you hurt me. You hurt your wedding. You hurt your marriage. But she was cheating on you, I said. She was betraying you. I know, my father said. And yes, I'm devastated by that. But the way you handled it was cruel and thoughtless. You took something that should have been between me and Patricia and turned it into a public spectacle. I'm sorry, I said. I'm so sorry. My father was quiet for a long time. I spoke to a lawyer, he said finally. I'm filing for divorce from Patricia. She's already agreed to it, so that's handled. Dad, I tried to say something. But I also need to tell you something else, my father said. Something that I should have told you a long time ago. He paused, and I could see him gathering his courage. Patricia wasn't the first woman I've been with who has done this to me, he said. Your mother was having an affair too. That's why we divorced. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. What? Your mother had an affair, my father repeated. She's been with Marcus for years. They were together when she married me, but I didn't know that at first. When I found out, it destroyed me. But I never told you because I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want you to think less of your mother. But Mom and Marcus, they seem so happy, I said. They probably are, my father said, because they've finally stopped hiding, because they're together openly now. But I lost my wife. I lost my marriage. I lost so much because of her infidelity. I didn't know what to say. My mother? My mother had been unfaithful to my father? How had I not known this? And now I've lost my marriage to Patricia too, my father continued. But this time, everyone knows about it. This time, it's public. This time, there's no way for me to process it privately and move on. This time, it's a scandal that will follow me for the rest of my life. Dad, I didn't know about Mom, I said. I know, my father said. That's because I made a choice to protect you from that information. But you didn't make that same choice with Patricia. You didn't protect anyone. You just destroyed everything. He stood up. I think you should leave, he said. Dad, I said, standing up too. I mean it, he said. I need to be alone right now. I need to process what's happened. And I can't do that with you here. I left his house feeling like I had just destroyed my relationship with my father permanently. A week after my wedding, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was a woman named Catherine. She said she was Patricia's sister. I need to talk to you about what you did, Catherine said, her voice angry. I need you to understand the consequences of your actions. I'm sorry, I said. But Patricia was having an affair. I had to tell my father. That's not what I'm calling about, Catherine said. I'm calling about what you didn't find when you looked at Patricia's phone. What do you mean? I asked. Patricia's affair with Robert isn't just an affair, Catherine said. Robert is married. Robert has 3 kids. And when you exposed Patricia publicly, you also exposed Robert. His wife found out. She's leaving him. His kids are devastated. I felt my stomach drop. That's not my fault, I said, but the words felt hollow even as I said them. Isn't it? Catherine asked. You chose to expose their affair in front of hundreds of people. You chose to make it public. You chose to turn someone's private pain into a public scandal. And now Robert's family is destroyed. He shouldn't have been having an affair, I said. No, he shouldn't have, Catherine agreed. But that wasn't your decision to make. That wasn't your place. And now his wife is filing for divorce. His kids are in therapy, and it's because of you. Catherine hung up after that. I sat in my apartment, my hands shaking. I had only been thinking about Patricia's betrayal of my father. I hadn't thought about Robert. I hadn't thought about Robert's family. I hadn't thought about the ripple effects of my actions. And now, apparently, Robert's marriage was destroyed because of me. 2 weeks after my wedding, my mother called me from California. She sounded upset. Sophia, I need to talk to you about something, she said. Okay, I said cautiously. I've been getting messages from people, she said. People from Seattle, people who were at your wedding. They've been asking me about my marriage to Marcus. They've been asking me if Marcus is the man I was having an affair with when I was married to your father. I thought you were going to tell me the truth, my mother said. I thought you were going to let me tell my story. But instead, you told my story for me, in front of everyone. And now it's out there, and I can't control it. Mom, I didn't mean, I started to say. I know you didn't mean to, my mother said. But you did. And now Marcus and I are dealing with the consequences. His ex-wife is making his life difficult. She's using the affair as leverage in custody battles. She's telling everyone that he cheated on her, which technically he did. And it's all because you decided to expose Patricia's affair at your wedding. I'm sorry, I said. I know you're sorry, my mother said. But sorry doesn't fix anything. Sorry doesn't undo what's been done. After that call, I felt completely lost. I had thought I was doing the right thing. I had thought I was protecting my father. But instead, I had exposed multiple affairs, destroyed multiple families, and created consequences that I was only beginning to understand. I need to pause here and talk to you directly, Tin Tea Tales viewers. If you're still watching, thank you. Thank you for staying with this story, even as it gets darker, even as the consequences become more and more severe. What Sophia is learning is that revenge is never simple, that exposing secrets has consequences, that sometimes doing what feels right in the moment can cause so much collateral damage. If you're watching this and you've ever been tempted to expose someone publicly, if you've ever felt that righteous anger and thought about destroying someone's reputation, I want you to understand what Sophia is learning, that there are always consequences you can't predict. If this story is resonating with you, if you're feeling angry at Sophia or sympathetic to her, please like and subscribe to Tin Tea Tales right now. Your support helps us tell stories that matter. Your support helps us bring stories like this to viewers all around the world. If you want to directly support us, please send a super thanks. Your financial support means everything to us. And please, please tell me in the comments, what would you have done in Sophia's situation? Would you have exposed Patricia? Or would you have let your father handle it privately? Now, let's continue with the story. Because Sophia's situation is about to get much, much worse. 3 weeks after my wedding, I discovered something that would make everything else pale in comparison. I was cleaning out my closet, putting away my wedding dress carefully in a box, when I found James's laptop. It had fallen behind some shoes. When I picked it up, it was on, and the screen was still lit. I know I shouldn't have looked. I know I should have just closed it and put it away. But after what I had done at my wedding by violating Patricia's privacy, you would think I would have learned that lesson. But I didn't. Instead, I looked at the screen, and what I found made my blood run cold. There was a document open. It was titled, Divorce Papers Draft. My heart stopped. James was drafting divorce papers? James was planning to leave me? I clicked on the document to read it. It was a draft divorce agreement. James was proposing a settlement where I would get the house we were buying together, but he would get most of our other assets. He was being very specific about what he wanted to take. And there was a note at the bottom of the document that said, file after the honeymoon. Keep her from suspecting anything. The prenup should hold up. Prenup? What prenup? We didn't have a prenup. We didn't discuss a prenup. James had never mentioned a prenup. My hands were shaking. I opened James's email. I started looking through his messages. What I found was a series of emails between James and someone named Victoria. The emails were explicitly romantic. They were explicitly sexual. I can't wait to be with you, one email said. I'm just waiting for the wedding to be over. Once the wedding is done, I'll file for divorce. Once the divorce is finalized, we can be together openly. How much do you think you'll get? Victoria had responded. You said her family has money. Enough, James responded. Enough to make it worth my while. I felt like I was going to be sick. James had married me for money. James had an affair. James was planning to leave me after the honeymoon. And I had no idea. I sat down on the bed, my whole body shaking. The man I had married, the man I had trusted completely, had betrayed me in the most devastating way. And I had been so focused on Patricia's betrayal of my father that I hadn't seen what was happening right in front of me. When James came home that evening, I was waiting for him in the living room with his laptop open on the coffee table, showing the divorce papers and the emails with Victoria. His face went white when he saw it. "Sophia," he said carefully, "I can explain." "Can you?" I asked. "Can you explain how you married me for money? Can you explain how you're having an affair? Can you explain how you were planning to leave me after the honeymoon?" James sat down on the couch. He looked defeated. "Yes," he said finally. "I can explain, and I think you need to hear the truth." "The truth?" I asked, my voice full of rage. "What truth? That you're a liar? That you're a cheater? That you married me under false pretenses?" "The truth," James said, "is that your father is not who you think he is." I stared at him. "What are you talking about?" "Your father came to me before the wedding," James said. "He told me that Patricia was having an affair. He asked me to help him with a plan." "What kind of plan?" I asked, confused. "He wanted to catch Patricia and Robert in a public place," James said. "He wanted to expose them. He wanted the whole world to know what they had done. But he was worried that if he did it himself, it would look like a jealous husband acting irrationally. So he asked me to help him orchestrate it." "James is lying," I said. "My father would never do that." "He would," James said, "because James isn't actually having an affair. Victoria is your father's private investigator. The emails are fake. I'm part of your father's plan to make it look like I'm betraying you, so that when the truth about Patricia comes out, people will think you're acting out of emotional distress rather than acting on your father's behalf." I felt dizzy. "No," I said, "that doesn't make sense. My father was devastated when I exposed Patricia." "Of course he was," James said. "He had to play the part. He had to make it look like you acted against his wishes. He had to make it look like you were impulsive and reckless." "But why would he do that?" I asked. "Because he wanted to destroy Patricia," James said. "He wanted everyone to know that she was unfaithful. He wanted to humiliate her completely, and he knew that the best way to do that was through you. He knew that if you exposed her, people would think of it as a daughter protecting her father, not as a man orchestrating revenge." I couldn't process what James was saying. It didn't make sense. My father loved me. My father wouldn't use me like that. "Show me," I said. "Show me proof." James opened his phone and showed me text messages between him and my father. In the messages, my father was giving James detailed instructions about how to behave, what to say, and how to make it look convincing. "He paid me to do this," James said. "He paid me $50,000 to marry you and help him expose Patricia." I felt like the world had tilted on its axis. My father had paid James to marry me. My husband was part of an elaborate scheme orchestrated by my father. "There's more," James said quietly. "More?" I asked, not sure I could handle any more revelations. "Patricia's affair," James said. "It wasn't real." "What do you mean it wasn't real?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I mean that your father paid Robert to pretend to have an affair with Patricia," James said. "Robert is a friend of your father's. They worked together to create fake text messages. They worked together to make it look like Patricia was having an affair. It was all orchestrated." "Why?" I asked. "Why would my father do that?" "Because he wanted to destroy Patricia," James said. "Because he wanted revenge on her for something she had done." "What did she do?" I asked. "I don't know," James said. "Your father never told me. He just told me that she deserved to be exposed. He told me that she had hurt him deeply, and he paid me to help him destroy her." I stood up and walked to the window. I couldn't look at James. I couldn't process what he was telling me. My entire wedding day had been orchestrated. My exposure of Patricia's affair was part of an elaborate scheme. The text messages I had found were fake. The affair I thought I had discovered was a fabrication, and I had destroyed Patricia's reputation based on lies. I had destroyed Robert's family based on lies. I had hurt my mother based on lies, all because my father wanted revenge. I called my father immediately. When he answered, I could hear the concern in his voice. "Sophia, what's wrong?" "We need to talk," I said. "In person, right now." 20 minutes later, I was at his house. He opened the door, and I could see the guilt in his eyes before I even said anything. "You know," he said, "it wasn't a question." "Yes," I said. "James told me everything. He told me about the scheme. He told me about Patricia's fake affair. He told me about Robert." My father sat down on the couch. He looked old and tired. I can explain, he said. Can you? I asked. Can you explain why you used me? Why you orchestrated an elaborate scheme to destroy Patricia? Why you paid my husband to marry me? Because Patricia deserved it, my father said. His voice was quiet but filled with anger. Because she has been systematically destroying me for years. What do you mean? I asked. I mean that Patricia has been psychologically abusive. My father said, I mean that she has isolated me from my friends. I mean that she has controlled every aspect of my life. I mean that she has made me feel small and worthless. So you decided to destroy her? I asked. I decided to expose her, my father said. I decided to make her understand what it feels like to be humiliated. I decided to make her pay for what she's done to me. By using me, I said, by orchestrating a fake affair, by having me expose lies. Yes, my father said, because I knew you would do it. I knew that if you found out about the affair, you would be angry enough to expose it. I knew that you would want to protect me. So you lied to me, I said. You manipulated me. You used me as a tool in your revenge scheme. Yes, my father admitted. I felt tears streaming down my face. My father had done exactly what I had accused Patricia of doing. He had betrayed my trust. He had manipulated me. He had used me for his own purposes. I'm going to tell everyone the truth, I said. I'm going to tell them that the affair was fake. I'm going to tell them that you orchestrated this whole thing. No, you won't, my father said quietly. Why wouldn't I asked. Because if you do, you'll look like a fool, my father said. You'll look like someone who couldn't figure out the truth. You'll look like someone who was manipulated by both of us. Is that really what you want? He was right. I was trapped. If I exposed the truth, I would expose myself as well. I would expose my own gullibility. I would expose the fact that my own father had manipulated me. There's something else you should know, my father said. What? I asked. Patricia didn't leave because she was devastated by being exposed, my father said. She left because she found out about the scheme. Robert told her, and she realized that I had set the whole thing up. So she left. Where is she now? I asked. I don't know, my father said. She cut off all contact with me. I left my father's house feeling completely lost. I had thought I was the hero of this story. I had thought I was protecting my father from a woman who was betraying him. But instead, I had been a pawn in my father's revenge scheme. The next 2 weeks were the hardest of my life. I was dealing with the revelation that my entire wedding day had been orchestrated. I was dealing with the fact that my husband had been paid to marry me. I was dealing with the fact that my father had manipulated me. And I was dealing with the reality that I had no idea what to do next. James and I barely spoke. He was sleeping in the guest room. We were existing in the same house, but living separate lives. Maya came over to check on me. I told her everything. About the scheme, about the fake affair, about James being paid to marry me, about my father's manipulation. Oh my God, Maya said. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. I know, I said. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I can stay married to James. I don't know if I can ever trust my father again. Have you thought about leaving? Maya asked. Where would I go? I asked. I'm married to a man who doesn't love me. I'm estranged from my father. I'm humiliated in front of everyone at my wedding. What kind of life is that? You could start over, Maya said. You could leave James, you could move away, you could rebuild your life. But I just got married, I said. I just started this new chapter, and now it's all falling apart. It was already falling apart, Maya said gently. You just didn't know it. 2 weeks after James's confession, my father called me. He said he needed to tell me why he had orchestrated the scheme. He said I deserved to know the truth. I agreed to meet him for coffee. When I saw him, he looked worse than before. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. He looked broken. I need to tell you something about Patricia, he said. Something that will explain why I did what I did. Okay, I said cautiously. Patricia was having a real affair, my father said, before Robert, with someone else, someone I knew, someone I trusted. I felt my stomach tighten. Who? Your mother's husband, my father said. Patricia was having an affair with Marcus. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. Patricia and Marcus? My mother's husband? That's how I found out about your mother's affair, my father said. Patricia got caught with Marcus. She confessed that they had been having an affair for months. And then she told me that she had arranged it. She told me that she had gone after Marcus specifically to hurt me. She told me that she knew it would devastate me to know that she had slept with your mother's husband. Why would she do that? I asked. Because I refused to give her what she wanted, my father said. She wanted money. She wanted to change the prenup. She wanted me to give her control of some of my assets. And when I refused, she decided to hurt me by having an affair with Marcus. But the texts I found, I said. The texts from Robert, those were real? No, my father said. Those were fake, but the fact that she was willing to have an affair with Marcus, that was real. That was real proof of what kind of person she was, and I wanted to destroy her for it. I wanted everyone to know what she had done. So you orchestrated a scheme to get revenge, I said. Yes, my father said. I created a fake affair to destroy the reputation of someone who had already destroyed me. I used you to do it, and I'm sorry. Sorry isn't enough, I said. You lied to me. You manipulated me. You used me. I know, my father said. And I've had to live with that guilt for the past few weeks. But I needed you to know why I did it. I needed you to understand that it wasn't random. It wasn't just cruelty. It was revenge for something very real. It was still wrong, I said. I know, my father said, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it up to you. 6 weeks after my wedding, I got a letter from a law firm. It was addressed to me personally. The letter stated that I was being sued for defamation, emotional distress, and slander. Patricia was suing me for $1 million. The allegations were listed in detail. 1, I had publicly accused her of infidelity without factual basis. 2, I had displayed private messages, which she could now prove were fabricated. 3, I had caused severe emotional and professional damage to her reputation. 4, I had interfered with her marriage. 5, I had caused her to lose her job due to the public nature of the accusations. 6, I had caused her to have a nervous breakdown and require hospitalization. The letter outlined that Patricia had evidence proving the affair was fabricated. She had evidence that my father had orchestrated the entire scheme. She had evidence that James had been paid to participate in the scheme. And she was prepared to use all of it against me in court. I immediately called a lawyer, Michael Harrison, who specialized in defamation cases. I brought all the evidence I had, James's confession, my father's admission, the text messages from my father instructing James on what to do. When I showed him everything, Michael's face went pale. "This is bad," he said. "This is very bad." "What do you mean?" I asked. "I mean that you were used in a scheme to fabricate evidence of an affair," Michael said. "I mean that you publicly exposed that fabricated affair. I mean that in doing so, you damaged Patricia's reputation, her career, and her mental health. I mean that she has a very strong case against you." "But I didn't know it was fake," I said. "I didn't know about the scheme. I thought I was protecting my father." "That doesn't matter," Michael said. "In the eyes of the law, you made accusations of infidelity in a public setting without verifying the information. You presented private messages as evidence. Whether those messages were real or not is irrelevant to the defamation claim. What matters is that you caused damage to her reputation." "What about my father?" I asked. "He's the one who orchestrated this. He's the one who should be held responsible." "He probably should be," Michael agreed. "But Patricia is suing you, not him, and you're an easier target because you're the one who made the public accusations." "What do I do?" I asked, feeling panic rising in my chest. "We fight," Michael said. "We present evidence that shows you were manipulated. We show that you acted in good faith, believing the information you had was accurate. We try to convince a jury that you're a victim of your father's scheme, not the perpetrator of the defamation." "How much will this cost?" I asked. "A lot," Michael said. "Litigation is expensive. Even if we win, you're looking at $20,000 to $30,000 in legal fees. If we lose, you're looking at paying Patricia $1 million plus court costs, plus her legal fees." I felt like the walls were closing in. 3 days after receiving Patricia's lawsuit, James told me he was leaving. We were sitting in the kitchen of the house we had bought together, the house we were supposed to build a life in, the house that now felt like a prison. "I can't do this anymore," he said. "I can't stay in this marriage. This was all a mistake." "I know," I said. I know that you were paid to marry me. I know that this isn't real. But we can't, James said. I need to leave. I need to get out of this situation. Okay, I said, because I didn't have the energy to fight him. I understand. But there's something else, James said. Your father paid me $50,000 to marry you. I want that money back. I stared at him. What? I want the $50,000, James repeated. That was supposed to be payment for a temporary marriage. But this lawsuit has changed everything. I'm now part of a legal case. I could be subpoenaed. I could be forced to testify. I could be exposed as part of the scheme. And I'm not going to stay in this marriage and face those consequences. So what? You think I have $50,000? I asked. You think I can just give you the money back? I don't care how you get it, James said. But I want it, or I'm going to go to Patricia's lawyer and tell them everything I know about your father's scheme. I'm going to testify against you. I'm going to make sure you lose that lawsuit. Are you blackmailing me? I asked, shocked. Yes, James said simply. I am, because you've destroyed my life, because I was stupid enough to agree to this scheme, because now I'm caught in the middle of a lawsuit and a family vendetta, and I need that money to start over somewhere else. I didn't have $50,000. I had a job as a graphic designer that paid well, but not that well. My savings account had maybe $10,000 in it, and James was demanding $50,000 or he would testify against me. I can't get you that money, I said. Then you're going to lose the lawsuit, James said. And you're going to have to pay Patricia $1 million. Which do you prefer? He left the next morning. He packed a bag, left his wedding ring on the kitchen counter, and drove away. We didn't even have a real divorce conversation. He just left. When I told my father that James was threatening to testify against me unless I paid him $50,000, I expected him to step up. I expected him to take responsibility for the mess he had created. I expected him to help me. What I got instead was a phone call from his lawyer. My father wasn't going to give me the money. My father wasn't going to take responsibility. My father was going to distance himself from me completely. The lawyer explained that my father wanted to make it clear that he was not responsible for the scheme. He claimed he had no knowledge of what James was doing. He claimed he had never paid anyone to marry me. He claimed that if there was a scheme, it was something James had orchestrated without his knowledge. Your father is denying everything? I asked the lawyer, shocked. Your father is protecting himself, the lawyer said. If he admits to orchestrating the scheme, he could face legal consequences. He could be sued for fraud. He could be sued for conspiracy. So he's not going to admit to anything. He's going to claim ignorance. But James has text messages, I said. James has proof that my father paid him. Text messages can be claimed to be fabricated, the lawyer said. There's no smoking gun here. It's James's word against your father's word. And your father is going to deny everything. My father had completely abandoned me. My own father had orchestrated a scheme to destroy Patricia. And now that the scheme had been exposed, he was leaving me to face the consequences alone. Over the next 3 months, we entered the discovery phase of the lawsuit. This is where both sides exchange evidence and information. This is where the truth starts to come out. Patricia's lawyer was relentless. They wanted documents, they wanted emails, they wanted text messages, they wanted everything. And in the process of searching through my father's emails, which I had access to because he had forwarded many of them to me, I found something that made me realize my entire understanding of the situation was wrong. There were emails from Patricia to my father dating back years. Emails from before they even got married. In these emails, Patricia was explaining her concerns about him. She was expressing that she felt controlled by him. She was expressing that he had isolated her from her friends. She was expressing that he was emotionally abusive. In one email, Patricia wrote, "David, I need you to understand that I can't stay in this relationship if it continues the way it has been going. You've made me feel like I'm not allowed to have my own life. You've made me feel like I'm not allowed to have friends. You've made me feel like I'm your possession rather than your partner." My father's response was, "Patricia, I'm trying to protect you. I'm trying to keep you safe. That's what love is." And then there were more recent emails from Patricia to a therapist that she had been seeing. She was describing experiencing emotional abuse. She was describing feeling trapped. She was describing needing to escape. And that's when I realized the truth. Patricia hadn't been the villain in this story. My father had been. All those things he had told me about Patricia being controlling, those were things he was doing to her. All those things he said she had done to him, those were things he was doing to her. Patricia had slept with Marcus because she was trying to escape. She was trying to hurt my father because she felt trapped and abused. And my father, rather than accepting responsibility for his behavior, had decided to destroy her. I had destroyed her based on the lies of an emotionally abusive man. But there was something else in the discovery process that would change everything. Patricia's lawyer submitted documents that revealed Patricia's true identity and background. Patricia Chen, whose maiden name was Patricia Sullivan, had previously been married to a man named Thomas Mitchell. Thomas Mitchell had been abusive to her, physically and emotionally. She had escaped that relationship and changed her last name to her mother's maiden name, Chen. When Patricia married my father, she thought she was escaping that cycle of abuse. But instead, she had walked into another relationship with an abusive man. The documents included police reports from her first marriage. The documents included photos of bruises. The documents included medical records showing evidence of abuse. Patricia had survived one abusive marriage and then walked directly into another one. And then, my father had orchestrated a scheme to destroy her reputation, to humiliate her publicly, and to make sure that everyone knew she was unfaithful. I felt sick. I had been manipulated by an abuser to help destroy a woman who had already been abused. I had been used to perpetuate a cycle of abuse. At Patricia's deposition, which I was allowed to attend, she told her full story. She explained how my father had slowly isolated her from her friends, how he had made her feel like she wasn't allowed to spend time with people he didn't approve of, how he had criticized everything she did, how he had told her she wasn't good enough, how he had made her feel like she couldn't make any decisions without his approval. She explained how she had reached a breaking point and decided to sleep with Marcus. She explained that she did it deliberately to hurt my father, because she felt like there was no other way to escape the relationship. She explained how, when that affair came to light, she thought maybe it would finally open my father's eyes to how unhappy she was. She thought maybe it would force him to take her concerns seriously. Instead, he had orchestrated an elaborate scheme to destroy her. I thought he loved me, Patricia said, her voice breaking. I thought if I married him, if I committed to him, that he would change, that he would be different from Thomas. But he wasn't different. He was the same. He was controlling. He was abusive. He made me feel like I was crazy for questioning anything he did. She talked about how the public exposure of her affair had destroyed her career. She was a therapist, and once it became public, even though it was fabricated, that she was an unfaithful cheater, her clients left. Her practice closed. She lost her livelihood. She talked about how the public humiliation had triggered her PTSD from her first abusive marriage. She talked about how she had been hospitalized for suicidal ideation. She talked about how even though the affair was fake, the damage to her reputation was very real. And then she looked directly at me. Sophia, she said, I know that you didn't know the full story. I know that you were manipulated by your father, and I don't blame you for that. But I need you to understand that your actions had real consequences. You hurt me. You triggered my trauma. You made me feel like my worst fears were coming true, that no matter where I went, no matter who I was with, I would always be treated as someone who was less than human. I was crying. I was completely broken. After Patricia's testimony, I knew what I had to do. I met with my lawyer and told him that I wanted to settle the lawsuit. I wanted to offer Patricia a settlement that included a full apology. My lawyer thought I was crazy. If you settle, you're admitting fault, he said. You're admitting that you defamed her. You're opening yourself up to having to pay damages. I know, I said, and I should pay damages, because I did damage her. I destroyed her reputation. I hurt her, and I need to take responsibility for that. But you were manipulated, my lawyer said. You didn't know the truth. I should have asked more questions, I said. I should have verified the information. I should have talked to Patricia directly instead of going to my father's word for it. I made choices that hurt someone, and I need to take responsibility for those choices. My lawyer arranged a mediation session. At that session, I met with Patricia face to face for the first time since the wedding. She looked different. She looked tired. She looked like someone who had been through hell. Patricia, I said, I want to apologize. I want to tell you that I'm sorry for what I did. I want to tell you that I was wrong to expose your affair publicly without verifying the information. I want to tell you that I was wrong to let my father's narrative override my own good judgment. I accept your apology. Patricia said, but I need you to understand something. Your apology doesn't undo the damage. Your apology doesn't give me back my career. Your apology doesn't erase the trauma. Your apology is nice, but it's not enough. I know, I said, and I'm prepared to pay damages. I'm prepared to take financial responsibility for what I did. How much? Patricia asked. I can't afford $1 million, I said, but I can pay whatever I can afford. I can liquidate my assets. I can set up a payment plan. I can do whatever it takes to make this right. Patricia and I reached a settlement. I agreed to pay her $250,000 over 5 years. That meant I would have to sell the house I had bought with James. That meant I would have to take on significant debt. That meant the next 5 years of my life were going to be devoted to paying for the damage I had caused. But it was the right thing to do. 2 days after settling with Patricia, my father called me. He said he needed to see me. He said there was something he needed to tell me. I almost didn't go. I had nothing left to give him. I was completely drained. I was completely broken. But I went anyway. When I arrived at his house, he looked worse than I had ever seen him. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. He looked like he was dying inside. Sophia, he said, I need to tell you something. I need to tell you why I really did what I did. Dad, I don't want to hear it, I said. I don't care anymore. You destroyed Patricia. You destroyed my marriage. You destroyed my life. And for what? For revenge? No, my father said. Not for revenge, for money. What? I asked. Patricia had money, my father said. A lot of money. She inherited money from her first husband's estate. Thomas Mitchell left her everything in his will because he was remorseful for the abuse he had perpetrated. Patricia had $3 million. I stared at him. You're telling me you orchestrated an entire scheme to destroy Patricia because she had money? Yes, my father said. I wanted to marry her so I could get access to that money. I wanted to control it. I wanted to use it for my business ventures. But Patricia was smart. She had a prenup. She had trusts. She had lawyers protecting her money. And I got frustrated. I got angry. And I decided that if I couldn't have her money while I was married to her, I would take it after the divorce. How would destroying her reputation help you get her money? I asked. Because, my father said, if Patricia was publicly exposed as an unfaithful cheater, she would be emotionally devastated. She would be isolated. She would be vulnerable. And when we divorced, I could take advantage of that vulnerability to negotiate a settlement that gave me access to some of her money. You're a monster, I said. You're a complete and utter monster. You're telling me that you destroyed this woman's life not because she hurt you, but because you wanted her money? Yes, my father said. He didn't even sound ashamed. He sounded matter of fact, like he was explaining a business transaction. But the thing is, my father continued, the plan didn't work. Patricia didn't fall apart the way I expected her to. Instead, she got a good lawyer and sued you. And now my reputation is being destroyed along with hers. And I'm losing the money anyway because of litigation costs. So what? I asked. You're telling me this because you want sympathy? You're telling me this because you want me to feel sorry for you? No, my father said. I'm telling you this because you need to know that you did the right thing by settling with Patricia. Because Patricia is a good person, and I'm a bad person. And I used you to hurt her, and I want you to know that it had nothing to do with protecting you. It had everything to do with greed. I felt numb. My father had orchestrated an elaborate scheme based purely on greed. He had used me as a pawn in his game. He had manipulated me into destroying an innocent woman so that he could try to get access to her money. And I had let him. I need to pause here and speak to you directly, Tinty Tales viewers. If you're still with me, thank you. Thank you for staying with this story as it has gotten darker and darker. Thank you for bearing witness to Sophia's journey from victim to perpetrator to victim again. I also discovered during the litigation process that Robert, the man my father had paid to pretend to have an affair with Patricia, had paid a significant price for his involvement in the scheme. When Robert's wife found out that he had been part of the fake affair, she learned this through the discovery process. She was devastated. She felt betrayed. She filed for divorce. But it got worse. In the course of the divorce proceedings, Robert's wife discovered that Robert had actually been having a real affair with someone else. The discovery of the fake affair had led her to investigate further, and she had uncovered Robert's actual infidelity. So Robert was now dealing with the consequences not only of the fake affair, but of his actual affairs. His wife took full custody of the children. Robert had to pay child support. Robert's reputation was destroyed. Robert lost his job because his employer found out about the affair and didn't want to be associated with someone involved in a public scandal. Robert reached out to me to apologize. He explained that he had agreed to participate in my father's scheme because my father had promised him money. But when the scheme fell apart, Robert was left to face the consequences alone, while my father tried to distance himself. I realized that the damage I had caused extended far beyond Patricia. It had damaged Robert's marriage. It had damaged Robert's career. It had damaged Robert's relationship with his children. All because my father had orchestrated a scheme, and I had been foolish enough to participate in it without asking questions. 6 months after settling my lawsuit with Patricia, I reached out to her. I asked if we could meet. I had something I wanted to tell her. We met at a coffee shop. Patricia looked healthier than she had at the deposition. She looked like she was starting to rebuild her life. I wanted to tell you, I said, that my father is facing criminal charges. I wanted to tell you that he's being investigated for fraud. I wanted to tell you that I reported him to the authorities. I know, Patricia said. My lawyer told me, and I appreciate that you did that. But I want you to understand something, Sophia. What? I asked. I don't want your father to go to prison, Patricia said. I don't want him to suffer the way he made me suffer. Because if I do that, if I pursue vengeance, then I become like him. I become the kind of person who hurts others to make themselves feel better. But he hurt you, I said. He abused you. He orchestrated a scheme to destroy your reputation. Yes, Patricia said. And that was wrong. But I've learned something through all of this. I've learned that revenge doesn't heal anything. Revenge just creates more pain. What I want is for him to get help. What I want is for him to understand what he did and take responsibility for it. And if he does that, then I can let it go. Do you forgive him? I asked. I'm working on it, Patricia said. But I do forgive you, Sophia. I know you were manipulated. I know you were used. And I know that you're trying to take responsibility for your actions. That means something to me. I started crying. For the first time since all of this started, I felt like maybe I could begin to heal. 8 months after settling with Patricia, federal agents showed up at my apartment. They had a warrant. They said I was needed for questioning regarding a federal investigation into fraud and conspiracy. I cooperated fully. I went to the FBI field office. I answered every question. I provided every document they requested. I testified about my father's scheme. I testified about how he had paid James to marry me. I testified about everything I knew. The agents told me that my father was also under federal investigation. They told me that they had found evidence of financial fraud dating back years. They told me that my father had been committing insurance fraud, filing false business deductions, and potentially money laundering. Your father's scheme involving Patricia isn't even the worst of it, one of the agents told me. We've been looking at his finances for 3 years. We just didn't have enough evidence until you came forward. What's going to happen to him? I asked. If convicted, he's looking at significant prison time, the agent said. We're talking years, possibly decades. I should have felt satisfied. My father had committed crimes. My father was going to face consequences. My father was going to get what he deserved. But all I felt was sad. A week after the federal investigation became public, my mother called me. She was furious. How could you do this? She asked. How could you report your own father to the federal government? Mom, he committed crimes, I said. He defrauded people. He orchestrated a scheme to destroy Patricia. I know what he did, my mother said, but he's still your father. He's still family. Family doesn't orchestrate schemes to destroy people, I said. Family doesn't lie and manipulate. And neither do you, my mother said. But you did exactly that at your wedding. You publicly exposed an affair that you hadn't verified. You humiliated Patricia in front of hundreds of people, and now you're acting like you're the victim in all of this. I am taking responsibility for my actions, I said. I'm paying Patricia $250,000. I'm taking ownership of what I did. By turning your father in to the federal government, my mother asked, that's not taking responsibility, Sophia. That's betrayal. That's revenge. It's justice, I said. It's the same thing you accused him of doing, my mother said. You're orchestrating revenge, you're destroying your own family, and you're justifying it by saying you're seeking justice. My mother hung up. She didn't call me again. She cut off all contact with me. She went back to California with Marcus, and they built a life without me in it. I had lost my mother. I had destroyed my relationship with my father. I had lost my husband. I had destroyed multiple families with my actions at my wedding, and I was sitting alone in an apartment that I was going to have to sell to pay off the settlement with Patricia. 9 months after my father's arrest, James contacted me. He said he needed to meet with me. He said there was something important he needed to tell me. I almost didn't meet with him. I didn't want to see him. I didn't want to be reminded of how foolish I had been. But I agreed to meet him for coffee. When I saw him, he looked terrible. He looked like he had aged 10 years. He looked broken. I need to tell you something, he said. I need to tell you the real reason I married you. I already know, I said. My father paid you. My father orchestrated the scheme. That's not the whole truth, James said. Your father did pay me, but that's not why I actually married you. What do you mean? I asked. I mean that I was supposed to marry you and then leave you after a few months, James said. I was supposed to take the $50,000 my father gave me, file for divorce, and disappear. That was the original plan. Okay, I said. That's what you did. But I fell in love with you, James said. When I was with you, I fell in love with you, and I realized that I couldn't go through with the plan the way your father wanted me to. James, I don't want to hear this, I said. I was trying to leave, but he grabbed my arm. Please, he said. Please hear me out. I sat back down. I told your father that I couldn't marry you and then leave you, James said. I told him that I wanted to try to make the marriage work. I told him that I wanted to actually be with you. But then you left anyway, I said. Because your father threatened me, James said. When Patricia sued you, your father panicked. He realized that his scheme was falling apart. He called me and told me that if I stayed with you, if I didn't leave, he would go to the police and say that I had forged documents. He said he would go to the police and say that I had stolen money from him. He said he would destroy me if I didn't leave you immediately. So you left because he threatened you? I asked. Yes, James said, and I've regretted it every day since. I've regretted leaving you. I've regretted not fighting for our marriage. I've regretted letting your father manipulate me into abandoning you. I felt a mix of emotions. Anger, sadness, something that might have been love, but also might have been resentment. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because your father is about to be sentenced, James said. Because I've decided to come forward. I've decided to tell the authorities about what your father did. I've decided to tell them that he threatened me if I didn't leave you. I've decided to testify against him. Why? I asked. Because it's the right thing to do, James said. Because your father is a terrible person who has hurt so many people. Because I can't live with myself anymore knowing that I'm part of his scheme. And what about us? I asked. I don't know, James said. I know I hurt you. I know I betrayed you. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that leaving you was the biggest mistake of my life. And if you ever want to talk, I'll be here. After James left, I sat alone for a long time. I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know if I could trust him. I didn't know if I could forgive him. But I also realized that maybe, Just maybe there were people who regretted their actions. There were people who were trying to take responsibility. There were people who were trying to do the right thing. 1 month before my father's sentencing, I received an email from an unknown sender. The subject line said, "Read this before the sentencing." I opened the email and found an attachment. It was a video file. I clicked play and watched in horror as the video began. It was footage from inside my father's house. It was footage of my father with Patricia, but it wasn't footage from when they were married. The timestamp on the video showed it was from 3 weeks before my wedding. In the video, my father was with Patricia, and he was physically abusive to her. He was pushing her. He was screaming at her. He was pulling her hair. And then I saw something that made my blood run cold. My father was forcing Patricia to sign documents. He was forcing her to give him access to her bank accounts. "Sign it," he was saying. "Sign it, or I'll hurt you worse." Patricia was crying. Patricia was terrified. Patricia was complying. It was a confession on video. It was proof that my father was abusing Patricia. It was proof that my father was trying to coerce her into giving him access to her money through threats and violence. The email said, "This video was filmed by a private investigator hired by Patricia to document the abuse. Patricia wanted you to have it. Patricia wanted you to know what your father did to her. Patricia wanted you to know that everything she's told you is true." I watched the video 3 times. Each time, I felt more sick. Each time, I felt more devastated. My father wasn't just emotionally abusive. My father was physically abusive. My father was a predator, and I had been his daughter, and I hadn't seen it. I immediately sent the video to the FBI agents who had been investigating my father. I sent it to Patricia's lawyer. I sent it to the authorities. Within 24 hours, my father was arrested for assault and battery. Within 48 hours, additional charges were filed for attempted coercion. My father's lawyer called me and told me that my father wanted to meet with me before his sentencing. My father wanted to apologize. I almost didn't go, but I went anyway. I went because I needed to hear what he had to say. I needed to hear him explain himself. When I saw my father in the visitation room at the Federal Detention Center, he looked completely broken. He looked like a man who had finally faced the consequences of his actions. "Sophia," he said, "I'm sorry." "Sorry for what?" I asked. "Sorry for abusing Patricia? Sorry for using me? Sorry for orchestrating a scheme to destroy her? Sorry for all of it?" "Yes," my father said. "I'm sorry for all of it. I'm sorry for the man I became. I'm sorry for the person I've been for so long." "Why?" I asked. "Why did you become that person?" My father was quiet for a long time. Then he said something that I didn't expect. "Your mother," he said, "your mother's affair destroyed me. When I found out that she had been unfaithful, it broke something inside me, and I never fixed it. I never got help. I never dealt with it. Instead, I let that broken part of me grow and grow until it consumed everything." "So you hurt Patricia to punish my mother?" I asked. "No," my father said. "I hurt Patricia because she was there. I hurt Patricia because I thought if I could control someone, if I could manipulate someone, if I could destroy someone, then maybe I would feel like I had some power over what had happened to me." "But you didn't," I said. "You just created more victims. You just hurt more people." "I know," my father said, "and I have to live with that. I have to spend the next however many years in prison knowing that I hurt so many people, knowing that I hurt you, knowing that I hurt Patricia, knowing that I hurt James and Robert and everyone else I touched." "What do you want from me?" I asked. "I want you to know that I love you," my father said. "I want you to know that you're my daughter and I'm proud of you. I want you to know that even though I hurt you, even though I used you, I've always loved you." "If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this," I said. "I know," my father said, "and that's something I'll have to live with for the rest of my life. That's something I deserve to live with." At my father's sentencing hearing, the judge heard all the evidence. The judge heard about the fraud. The judge heard about the manipulation. The judge heard about the abuse. The prosecutor recommended 30 years. The judge sentenced my father to 25 years in federal prison. 25 years. My father would be in his 80s when he got out of prison. He might not get out alive. After the sentencing, I was given the opportunity to make a victim impact statement. I stood up in front of the court and the judge and told my father exactly what I was feeling. Your Honor, I said, I'm here today as both a victim of my father's actions and as someone who was complicit in those actions. My father manipulated me into exposing Patricia's fabricated affair at my wedding. Because of my actions, Patricia's reputation was destroyed. Because of my actions, multiple families were hurt. Because of my actions, I caused pain that I'm still trying to make amends for. I want to say to my father, I don't forgive you. I don't think I can ever forgive you, but I also don't want to be consumed by anger the way you were consumed by anger over my mother's affair. I don't want to become the kind of person who hurts others to make myself feel better. I'm going to move forward with my life. I'm going to rebuild. I'm going to figure out who I am without you. And I'm going to make sure that the lessons I've learned from this don't go to waste. After my statement, I walked out of the courtroom. I didn't look back. 1 year after my father's sentencing, I was in a much different place. I had sold the house that James and I had bought together. I had used the proceeds to pay off a significant portion of my settlement with Patricia. I had downsized my life dramatically. I had moved into a small apartment. I had taken a job at a smaller graphic design firm that paid less, but allowed me to have more control over my schedule and my life. And I had started healing. I went to therapy. I worked through my issues of trust, abandonment, and complicity. I worked through my anger at my father. I worked through my sadness about the family I had lost. I reconnected with Maya, my best friend. She had stuck by me through all of it, even when I had made terrible decisions. We spent time together, we laughed together, we cried together. And I developed a real friendship with Patricia. Patricia had rebuilt her life too. She had started a small practice as a therapist, specializing in trauma and abuse. She was using her experience to help other people. She was finding meaning in her pain. We would get coffee every week. We would talk about our lives. We would talk about the future. We would talk about forgiveness and healing and moving forward. One day, Patricia told me something that changed my perspective on everything. Sophia, she said, I need you to know that I don't blame you anymore for what happened at your wedding. How can you not blame me? I asked. I exposed your fabricated affair in front of hundreds of people. I destroyed your reputation. Because you were manipulated by someone you trusted, Patricia said. You were a victim, just like I was. The only difference is that I could see the abuse happening to me. You couldn't see it because it was your father, and it was subtle. But I should have asked questions, I said. I should have verified the information. Maybe, Patricia said, but you were angry, you were hurt, you were trying to protect someone you loved. I understand that impulse because I did the same thing. I tried to hurt your father because I was hurt by him. So we're both victims? I asked. Yes, Patricia said. We were both victimized by your father. And the only difference between us is that I recognized the abuse sooner, and you recognized it later. But we both ended up in the same place, trying to rebuild our lives after being hurt by him. James and I did eventually start seeing each other again. We went on dates. We talked about our feelings. We tried to rebuild what we had, but it didn't work. The trust was broken. I couldn't look at him without remembering that he had been paid to marry me. I couldn't look at him without remembering that he had left me when things got difficult. James testified against my father in court. He provided detailed information about the scheme. He helped put my father away for a long time, but that didn't erase what he had done. That didn't make the hurt go away. We remained friendly, but we didn't get back together. James moved on. He met someone else. He built a life without me, and I was okay with that. 2 years after my father's sentencing, my mother called me. She said she wanted to talk. She said she wanted to see me. I almost said no. I was still hurt by the way she had sided with my father. I was still hurt by the way she had accused me of betrayal. But I agreed to meet her. My mother flew up from California. We met at the same coffee shop where I had met with Patricia. I owe you an apology, my mother said. I was wrong. I was so focused on defending your father that I didn't see what he had done to you. I didn't see that he had manipulated you. I didn't see that he was an abuser. It's okay, Mom, I said. I understand. You were protecting family. I was protecting the wrong person, my mother said, and I should have been protecting you. My mother and I talked for hours. We talked about her affair with Marcus. We talked about her guilt over that affair. We talked about why she had felt compelled to defend my father even when he was clearly wrong. We talked about forgiveness. We talked about moving forward. And eventually we rebuilt our relationship. My mother and Marcus came to visit me. We spent time together as a family. We laughed, we cried, we talked about healing and hope. It wasn't perfect. Our family would never be what it was before, but it was something. It was a beginning. 3 years after my wedding day, I was cleaning out my closet when I found my wedding dress. It had been in a box in the back of my closet for 3 years. I took it out and looked at it. It was still beautiful. It was still perfect. But it was also a reminder of the worst day of my life. I could have thrown it away. I could have donated it. I could have tried to forget about it. Instead, I decided to do something different. I reached out to a tailor and had the dress altered. I had it changed so significantly that it no longer looked like a wedding dress. I had it transformed into something new, something that represented who I had become rather than who I had been on that day. When the dress came back from the tailor, it was a stunning white gown that could be worn to any formal event. It was elegant and sophisticated and beautiful, but it was no longer tainted by the trauma of that day. I wore it to a charity gala that Patricia and I attended together. We walked into that gala together, and we felt like survivors. We felt like warriors. We felt like women who had been through hell and come out the other side. 3 years after my father's sentencing, I received a letter from him. It was the first letter I had received from him since his imprisonment. In the letter, my father told me that he had been working with a therapist in prison. He told me that he was finally understanding the damage he had caused. He told me that he was sorry. But more than that, he told me that he had come across some old journals from when my parents were married. He told me that he had been reading through them and remembering the good times. He told me that he realized that he had spent so much time focused on my mother's betrayal that he had forgotten about all the good times they had shared. "I want you to know something," he wrote. "I want you to know that my pain over your mother's affair was real, but my response to that pain was wrong. I became the kind of person I hated. I became a betrayer. I became a manipulator. I became an abuser. And I did it because I thought it would make me feel better. I thought it would give me back some sense of control, but all it did was destroy more lives. All it did was hurt more people. I know that you don't forgive me. I know that you shouldn't forgive me. I know that I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want you to know that I'm trying to become a better person. I'm trying to take responsibility for my actions. I'm trying to heal from the pain that I was carrying so that I never hurt anyone the way I hurt Patricia and you and your mother. I'm proud of you, Sophia. I'm proud of the way you've rebuilt your life. I'm proud of the way you've taken responsibility for your actions. I'm proud of the way you fought for justice, even when it meant turning in your own father. You're stronger than I ever was. You're braver than I ever was. And I hope that one day when you're ready, you might be able to forgive me." I read that letter 3 times. I cried when I read it. And for the first time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, my father was finally becoming the man I had always wanted him to be. But it was too late. Too many things had happened. Too many people had been hurt. And I wasn't sure if redemption was even possible for someone who had caused so much damage. I'm now 32 years old. It's been 5 years since my wedding day. 5 years since I exposed Patricia's fabricated affair. 5 years since my life fell apart. In that time, I've learned so much about myself. I've learned that I'm capable of causing real damage with my actions. I've learned that revenge doesn't solve anything. It just creates more pain. I've learned that I need to ask questions before I act. I've learned that family is complicated, and sometimes the people we love are also the people who hurt us most. My career is thriving. I've built a reputation as a graphic designer who specializes in working with nonprofits and charities. I've done work for organizations that help domestic abuse survivors, organizations that help people rebuild their lives after trauma. My friendship with Patricia has become one of the most important relationships in my life. we've become like sisters. We've supported each other through the aftermath of my father's abuse. We've helped each other heal. Patricia has reconnected with her family, whom she had cut off during her marriage to my father. She's surrounded herself with people who love and support her. She's built a thriving therapy practice. She's helping other survivors. My mother and I have rebuilt our relationship. She and Marcus visit me regularly. We talk on the phone every week. We're not perfect, but we're trying. Robert has rebuilt his life. He reconnected with his ex-wife, and they've been working through their issues. They didn't get back together, but they co-parent their children in a healthier way. Robert started his own business. He's become more honest in his relationships and in his life. James moved to another city. He's married to someone else now. I saw a photo of him on social media, and he looked happy. I was genuinely happy for him. My father is still in prison. He has 12 more years before he's eligible for parole. He's working with therapists. He's taking medication for depression and anxiety. He's reading self-help books. He's trying to become a better person. I don't know if I'll ever forgive him. I don't know if I'll ever have a real relationship with him again. But I'm working on letting go of the anger that I was carrying. I'm working on understanding that he was also a victim of his own pain and his own inability to process it in a healthy way. Looking back on everything that happened, I realized that my wedding day wasn't about Patricia wearing white. It wasn't about exposing an affair. It wasn't about protecting my father. My wedding day was about a family that was broken in so many ways that nobody could see the damage until it was too late. It was about people who were hurt and who hurt others in response. It was about the complicated nature of family relationships and how they can be both beautiful and devastating at the same time. If I could go back to that moment, when I was standing at the altar and saw Patricia in white, what would I do differently? I would have taken a deep breath. I would have let the moment pass. I would have gotten married to James the way I had planned. I would have talked to my father privately later. I would have asked questions before I acted. I would have verified the information before I exposed it. I would have been kinder. I would have been more thoughtful. I would have been more responsible. But I didn't do those things. And I've had to live with the consequences of my actions for 5 years. And I'll probably have to live with those consequences for the rest of my life. The truth is, there are no villains in this story. There are just people who were hurt and who hurt others in response. There are just people who made terrible choices and had to live with the consequences. There are just people who were trying to protect themselves and ended up destroying everything in the process. Patricia wasn't the villain. Patricia was a woman who was being abused and who made a terrible choice in response to that abuse. My mother wasn't the villain. My mother was a woman who was trapped in an unhappy marriage and who made a terrible choice to escape. James wasn't the villain. James was a man who was looking for money and who got caught up in a situation that was way over his head. My father wasn't just the villain. My father was a man who was devastated by betrayal and who responded to that devastal in a way that was abusive and manipulative. And I wasn't the hero. I was a woman who thought she was protecting her father and ended up perpetuating a cycle of abuse. We were all just people. We were all just doing the best we could with the tools we had. And sometimes the best we can do is still not good enough. Sometimes our actions hurt people even when we don't mean for them to. The lesson I've learned is that before you act, before you expose someone, before you seek revenge, you need to ask yourself, am I acting from a place of love or from a place of anger? Am I trying to help or am I trying to hurt? Is this my place to act or am I crossing a line? And if you can't answer those questions honestly, then you need to step back and think more carefully about what you're about to do. Because the consequences of your actions will follow you for the rest of your life. Tin Tea Tales viewers, thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for listening to this story from beginning to end. I know this story doesn't have a neat ending. I know it doesn't have a clear resolution where everyone is happy and everything is fixed. Life doesn't work that way. Life is messy and complicated, and sometimes there are no good answers, only the least bad options. If this story has moved you, if you felt the weight of Sophia's journey, if you understand the lessons she's learned, please like and subscribe to Tin Tea Tales right now. Your support means everything to us. If you want to directly support us, please send a super thanks. Your financial contribution helps us continue telling stories that matter. Stories about real people facing impossible circumstances. Stories about the consequences of our actions. Stories about forgiveness and healing and hope. And please tell me in the comments, what did you think about this story? What would you have done differently? Have you ever had an experience where your actions had consequences you didn't expect? Have you ever had to make amends for something you did? I want to hear from you. I want to know that this story meant something to someone. I want to know that Sophia's journey of growth and pain and healing resonated with you. If you're struggling with family relationships, if you're dealing with betrayal, if you're trying to figure out how to move forward after something terrible has happened, I want you to know that you're not alone. There are resources available. There are people who can help you. And there is hope for healing on the other side of that pain. I'm Sophia Chen. I wore a white wedding dress 5 years ago and got married to a man I thought I loved. I exposed my stepmom's affair thinking I was protecting my father. I destroyed multiple families thinking I was doing the right thing. And I spent the next 5 years learning that revenge has consequences, that our actions ripple out in ways we can't predict, and that sometimes the only way to heal is to take responsibility for the damage we've caused. I'm still rebuilding. I'm still healing. I'm still learning. But I'm grateful for the journey. I'm grateful for the people who stood by me. I'm grateful for the opportunity to share this story. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being part of my journey. With love and hope, I hope you take the lessons from my story and apply them to your own life. I hope you think before you act. I hope you ask questions. I hope you consider the consequences. And I hope you find your own path to healing and wholeness. This is Sophia Chen, and this has been my story on Tin Tea Tales.